Abby.
No, you can't use it.
Thanks for the plug. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And anyway, Shamash having a that's all.
Thank you very much.
Very special story you read.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so Parashat Acharei Mot. We'll talk a little about the Parsha. Maybe we'll talk about the sphere as well. I think it's the first time
We
we'll
need one more chair.
Need a chair? Want to stand right here? I can
Okay.
stand you well?
No.
Yeah, we'll get a chair.
Here's the...
We got
Okay, Rabbi.
it.
That's good, it's good. Have a seat.
We got.
It's good, it's all good.
Bye-bye, we have extra chair.
This is also good.
Everybody has a...
Everybody's a chair. Okay. So,
Sure, there is...
you sure?
Better than the stool.
Okay, thank you.
And there is one over there. Everybody's okay.
Everyone's good. There we go.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so maybe talk a little bit the Sphira as well.
Shankel?
So I don't recall if we talked about, I don't know if we were here for Parashat Shmini or not. I do want to mention one thing because it is a crossover. This is Parashat Acharei Mot, revisits the death of Nadav and Avihu, the two sons of Aaron. And Torah tells us, you should not enter into the holy without any time that you want. We're going to talk a little bit about that concept. Typically speaking, Jewish time, we think of Jewish time as a problem when we ask, let's close class for 8 o'clock and it starts 8:15, 8:30. So that's usually a problem with Jewish time. Usually Jewish time we associate with, 10-ish, means usually after 10. But we'll see that there's a problem in Jewish time.
6:36.
Yeah? 6:36. There's a problem with Jewish time when you come too early too. Alright? Generally speaking, we associate Jewish time, the problem coming too late. We'll see that another of you came too early. And doing something too early also has its consequences. Adam and Chava, they ate from the tree of knowledge too early. Right? The tree of knowledge was prohibited, but not forever. Hashem did not create that tree just to tempt them and say, no, there's no purpose to this tree. They were supposed to eat from that tree. Anybody know when? After Shabbos. After they had gone through an entire experience of a Shabbat, they would have been able to handle whatever the challenge the tree presented. But they just came in too early. You also find that the Shevet part of Ephraim that wanted to leave Egypt too early. Even though it was a good idea to leave Egypt, too early. There were a number of Jews that wanted to invade the land of Israel too early. David and Bathsheba, actually. David was not wrong that this union was meant to be, but the Chazal referred to the fact that he did it too early. Achal Paga, which means he ate it unripe. It was not quite ready to go. So we see that throughout history, there are problems with doing something too early. Too late, we understand what happens when people come late, right? We talk about Jewish time being late. But I'd like to talk about too early. None of you as well did something too early. That what they wanted to do, bring this incense offering, was a fantastic idea, but it wasn't yet quite its time. I want to talk about that in just a few minutes. Before we just review something very quickly, what was the sin of Nadav and Avihu? Yes?
Was it too early or it was bechipazon? It was...
Not bechipazon. Not bechipazon. I don't think bechipazon is the right word over here. I don't think so, no. But let's see. So I want to revisit something first. And that is, I believe we talked about this. The Torah in Parashat Shmini tells us that Nadav and Avihu sinned when they brought an Eish Zara, which means a strange fire or foreign fire, which means, again, they brought something that wasn't called for. On the other hand, I pointed out, the Chazal tell us, that there are other reasons that we point to and say this is why they were punished. Some say because they refused to get married. Some say because they didn't walk into the Mishkan with their heads covered. In another location, it says because they had the nerve, so to speak, to preempt or interrupt Moshe. Somebody had asked Moshe Rabbeinu a question, and rather than wait for Moshe to respond, they kind of intercepted the question and answered on their own. So all these, point to something. Doesn't sound right to intercept Moshe Rabbeinu. Not to get married doesn't sound right. Not to walk with your head uncovered doesn't sound right. But none of these seem to suggest that the punishment fits the crime of being killed. Doesn't make much sense. And number two, which was in fact the real sin? I remember when I was growing up, there was a TV show called To Tell the Truth. Anybody know that show? And right? And there'd be one guy that he had a certain career, and two other guys would pretend to have that same career, right? And the panel had to guess who was fibbing and who was a real person, right? And they said, well, the real John so-and-so, please stand up, right? So here also I want to say, well, the real reason, please stand up. Like, what was the reason why none of you were killed? By the way, I just want to tell you as an aside, shows you how far we've come. There was somebody on the show once, his name was Rabbi Sugarman from Baltimore, passed away actually not too long ago. Rabbi Sugarman invented something called the Rebbe card. You know, you have baseball cards, right? So he invented the Rebbe card, where it was a picture of the Rebbe, and in the back, it was a biography of the Rebbe. Instead of the kids collecting baseball cards, he had them invented collecting Rebbe cards. And it became very popular fad at one point. Anyway, so he was on the show to tell the truth. And so one of the panelists, they're not Jews, obviously the panelists, they were actors or retired actors, and said, okay, what's your best-selling Rebbe card? So he said at the time, this goes back a number of years ago already, Moshe Feinstein. So anyway, so when all the panel had to decide who was a real person, so nobody guessed him. Everybody guessed somebody else. Nobody goes Rabbi Sugarman. So when they asked this one fellow, why did you not think it was him? He said, well, I asked him what the best-selling rabbi is. He said, Moshe Feinstein. I never heard of the guy. So that's it, right? So our leaders, they're not leaders. They're not leaders because they make headlines. Right? That's not who they are. They're great because they're great. That's not what they do on stage. But nonetheless, let's figure out over here what the real reason is. Well, the real reason, please stand up.
Why does there have to be just one?
Well,
Judaism seems to do this all the time. They look for the reason. But in the real world, there are multiple causes of things.
But they have to all make notes. But right, sometimes it makes sense. Multiple cause of a death, because there'll be contributing causes, right? I get that. You can say he had a heart problem, he had this, and they can be contributing causes. You're absolutely right. Exile. The sages say different reasons why they went into exile, and there could be contributing causes. But they have to. How can they be here? Notice, are you saying basically that each one of these sins was not sufficient by itself, but they were all contributing causes? That's what you want. That's the only thing you have to say, right?
That's a possibility.
That's a possibility. I don't dismiss that, but it would make sense that they were somehow connected. Otherwise, there might be other things that did wrong in their lives too. Like they have to be connected at least. I grant you that, but there has to be some sort of connection. And you're absolutely right. We'll see in a second. There is something together. But I wanted, yeah.
I would say they were dead because they were drunk, because out of no place, all of a sudden Hashem, the right verse after that says,
good.
Don't.
True. I didn't even say that part. The Rashi tells us, based on the Torah juxtaposition, where right after the sin, the Torah tells Moshe to tell Aaron, make sure the Kohanim know never to drink before they enter the tabernacle. Suggests that the problem was they drank before they entered the tabernacle. Here's another reason, and also where's the connection? So I want to connect this to where we're now at the Sefira. I was just looking. That's what reminded me because I saw there's a book here that says, yeah.
Can we see that Aaron's sons displayed excessive zeal?
Excessive zeal. Excellent. I think you're absolutely right. You're halfway there. Halfway there. There's a book here. I'm going to get to that in a second. You're absolutely right. This is not only the book. It says, this is not a love story. Right? See that book? I know what it is. I don't need it. I don't need the book. There's a title called This Is Not a Love Story. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is. But it reminds me of a book called Love Story. Right? Remember there's a movie, right? Very popular book. Movie was a movie book, and the movie with Ali McGraw and was Ryan O'Neal, right? Love story. So why am I telling about love story? Because I want to talk about actually the Sefira. Why do I talk about the Sefira? We know that during these days of the Sefira, Rabbi Kiva's students passed away. Thousands of students, 24,000 students passed away. The Gemara Yevamah says, Shalom nahagu kavod zeh bezeh. They didn't give each other the proper respect. Now, what does that really mean? Does that mean they dissed each other? They weren't respectful for one another? It's hard to understand. Rabbi Kiva's students were great people. So to just attribute some really just coarse behavior doesn't make much sense. It certainly doesn't make sense in light of the fact that Rabbi Kiva's main teaching, I guess he didn't ride a car, he had maybe a bumper sticker on his donkey, but the bumper sticker on his donkey would have said, Amar Rabbi Kiva, Zeh Klal Gadol B'Torah. This is the golden rule of the Torah. Tell us. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You should love your fellows, you love yourself. This is what Rabbi Kiva said. This is the golden rule of the Torah. This was the teaching he taught every single day. When he came into the classroom, it was right up there on the classroom wall. So how could it be, if that was his main teaching, that his students failed in that area? They didn't give each other the proper respect after they heard this lesson. We don't expect the failing to be in the area where that was his main teaching. It's hard to dismiss that as coincidence. So I want to share with you a very interesting insight. And I want to say that it's true. They sinned precisely because they heard this lesson. What does that mean? So let's go back to this love story, or this not love story. In the story, love story, which is basically a tearjerker. Boy meets girl from the wrong side of the tracks. She gets sick. At the end, she dies. But it's really, real tearjerker. There's not much content in the book or in the movie for that matter. But in one scene of the story, I don't know if you recall this, they get into this huge fight. And he runs, she runs, whatever the case is. And of course, he comes back to apologize. It's always the guy that ends up apologizing, most of the time. The guy comes back, he apologizes, he says, I'm really, really sorry. And then she utters the famous line that I remember when I was growing up, it was on the billboards, on the buses, don't be sorry. You remember the end of that one? Because love means never having to say you're sorry. That was the famous, and everyone's oohing and eyeing, that's so deep, that's so beautiful. And what she's really trying to say is that, I know you're sorry. You don't have to say it, because we love each other. But we all know that's probably the most ridiculous thing to say. Love means having to say you're sorry. Love means having to say a thank you. Having to say thank you. But why should she make that mistake? It's a common mistake. Often we'll treat strangers or acquaintances more properly than people that we love. Because we take them for granted, and we know that they're going to, I didn't mean that, and I'm just having a bad day, or whatever the case is, or whatever. But often, precisely because we care about each other, that we kind of are dismissive of the importance of certain acknowledgments of respect and love. And so often, you'll thank your waitress, thank you very much, but if your wife or your mother brings up, you may not say it the same way. I meant to say thank you, right? But that's a terrible mistake. In a relationship, you have to say it, you have to show it. My mother has on her, well, actually in Florida, she went to Florida, now it's not there anymore, I'm a little disappointed. We had this cartoon clipping on our refrigerator for years and years. It was from a comic strip called Lockhorns. I don't know if you know Lockhorns. It's basically this blue-collar couple that are always fighting with each other. The genius of the comic strip is it's just one frame. You have to take the whole thing into one frame. Anyway, she's standing behind her kitchen counter, curlers in her hair, and he comes in, has a cigarette hanging from his lip, and he's got a bowling ball in his hands. And she looks at him and she goes, oh, you meant to bring me flowers. I meant to make you supper. Right? Right? It doesn't work. Right? It has to be said. It has to be expressed. And so, precisely because Rabbi Akiva's students heard the lesson of Parashat Acharei Mot, that's why they might have been negligent in showing the proper respect. Precisely because they loved each other so much. In a sense, it's kind of strange. When you love someone, you become one with that person. You become so one with that person that person becomes part of you, so you never think of that person as another person. And you don't give the person that respect as the other person, because they're part of you almost. And that's a serious issue. So what does that mean? Yeah?
I always thought about that. Could you please explain what was exactly wrong with the students of Rabbi Akiva?
Okay.
I mean, it's very confusing. Everybody says, well, they did not respect one another.
Right.
And that's it.
So
it is much deeper than what was going on really.
So again, the Gemara doesn't say anything more than that. You're absolutely right. Lo Nago covers up as kind of leads us to the imagination that suggests that the proper respect that they should have given one another, there was too much camaraderie, and enough. I'm going to try to develop this. I'll give you an example of what I mean in a second. Right. But understand two things. It's only because they were so great that they were held to such a high standard. In other words, if we would not respect each other the same way, we would not have the same consequences. And number two, you have to understand that the Sefer days, we'll see shortly, is a lead-up preparation for the giving of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva's students were going to be the next generation of Torah scholars. If they would fail in the area of Derech Eretz, which has to precede Torah, Derech Eretz Kamal Torah, right. They could not be the ones worthy of being the recipients of that love of Torah. Rabbi Akiva was considered to be the greatest person after Moshe Rabbeinu. There was a second giving of the Torah, so to speak. So their not being respectful has much greater ramifications than what for the general public. But I want to come back. I'm going to give you an example when I get to another view. All right? Okay. So let's go to another view. You're absolutely right. You said they had what was expected to excessive zeal. Excellent expression. In every relationship, there has to be a sense of balance. And relationships require balance. Not simple. I think I once told you this. I know. Very dangerous. If your wife is coming out of the bedroom, you're about to go out to a play or a movie or whatever, you're going to a wedding, she comes down the stairs and she asks you, very innocently, do I look fat in this dress? Right? The response should be, do I look stupid in this shirt? Right? You don't want to answer that question, right? But it's a very tricky balance, right? Relationships are always a tricky balance. So listen to this tricky balance. We're obligated to love someone. God, our parents, love a friend. But love, when you love someone, you get so close to that person, you kind of lose a sense of space that you need to give that person out of respect. In other words, you can love your parent like your best friend. And you should love your parent even more than your best friend. But you sure as heck can't treat them like your best friend. Because there's a amount of respect that has to be there as well. So, we've always talked about this, right? Love is an emotion that brings you towards someone, right? Or something. If I love someone, I want to get closer. If I love ice cream, I want to get closer to ice cream. If I'm afraid, I'm withdrawing. I'm afraid of the lion. I'm afraid of the, right? Whatever it is, I move back. Love, I always want to get closer. Fear, I always want to move back. And I think I once told you, that's one Kabbalistic idea why we sway when we pray. It's love and fear. I'm showing God, I love you, I want to get close. I'm also afraid, I'm moving back. So love and fear is expressed by these two emotions of back and forth. So the challenge is to be able to maintain that delicate balance of love and fear. Neither of you had the excessive zeal and excessive love, which means that they love God so much that they weren't able to take a step back for respect. Let's show what I mean. Number one, they loved God's Torah so much that when Moshe Rabbeinu was presented with a question, they couldn't resist but interrupt and discuss the question because they loved it so much. They were in love with God and His Torah so much, there was no room in their life to get married. But they didn't cover their hair. We've talked about this many times. A head covering is supposed to represent fear, right? The yarmulke, this word yarmulke, we've mentioned many times, is a conjunction of two words, Yarei Malka, fear of the king. We wear this on top of our heads to say that we recognize somebody's above us. So when it says they didn't have their heads covered, it means on a deeper level, it means they didn't have the proper, authentic fear to balance out love. I had a woman tell me many years ago, Rabbi, I love God so much. Why do I have to follow all these laws? And what you're saying is, there's a truth to that. You feel all this love and you feel like all these laws kind of like pin you down, right? But it's true. When you're in love, you're on cloud nine. But cloud nine, by definition, means you're not grounded. Fear and diktuk halacha, which means paying attention to details of law, that's what grounds a person. So love it takes out the cloud nine, but you have to bring it back down and being grounded in your relationship as well, and that's through respect and fear, and through the halachot themselves. So Nadav and Avihu's challenge was to have all this tremendous love. In fact, when they drank wine, it wasn't because they just were drinking and they said, okay, let's go to do service. They were looking to expand their experience. Drinking can lift your spirits. And they wanted to have an intoxicating experience. And I don't just mean it in a very physical way, but wine can elevate. It's mind expanding too, which is all part of that love expression. And they were looking to contribute. The Eish Zara, as you said, very good. The word Eish means fire, but it also represents passion. Which in Eish Zara, it was an overextended zeal or passion. It was too much. It was the Ezara. So it was a combination of all of them together, but now they fit into a package. It was everything just as demonstration of excessive zeal and love without the proper balance on the other hand. That was the another view. So it was born out of tremendous love, but we'll take a step back. You're not ready for this yet. I want to just extend that one. I'll take a question in a second. In this Torah portion, in general, Kabbalah talks about this a lot. Chassidus, there are three dimensions. There's the dimension of time, the dimension of space, and then the human soul is the third dimension. Often it's called in the Chassidus, Nefesh, Olam, and Zman. Nefesh refers to the soul, Zman is time, and Olam is space. Okay. It's not a coincidence, interesting enough, that this is Torah portion. The Torah tells us two things. It says, the Torah talks about the fact that Al Yom B'Chalei Sal Kodesh, and the Torah says also you cannot bring sacrifices not in their right time. And it also talks about Shchutei Chutz, which means you can't slaughter an animal and a sacrifice outside the temple. It has to be brought in the proper place. So there's a violation of time that's mentioned over here, and there's a violation of space. And now the Nadavi themselves, there was a sin in their soul that didn't have the proper balance. So all three things are clustered together over here. The Nadavi's sin, which was an imbalance in their soul, plus the Torah describes an invasion of time, a violation of time, and a violation of space. Schutei chutz, when you slaughter something outside the proper place. Now, in life, there are people that we know that invade our privacy, that we don't want to invade our privacy. And there are people that invade our privacy and wish they, right? And there are people we wish they would come and join us, and yet they don't, right? There is an idea where when you slaughter an animal, not in the place of the temple, you basically say, God, I'm comfortable right here. I'm not willing to go over there. I like my comfort zone. I'm not going there. It's a lack of love. Reb Tzadok says, if you love God, you'll make the effort to get over there. An invasion of time is something else. An invasion of time is God saying, I'm not ready yet. And you say, I don't care. I'm coming in anyway. Right? That's a lack of respect. So the love and fear, right? The lack of love is when I say, I'm staying here. I don't care if the place over there. I don't feel compelled enough to go over there. Lack of fear means God says, now's not the time. And you say, I don't care. I'm going in anyway. All right? So there is something called makom. There's a proper space, and there's a proper time, and there's an invasion of time and space. So I want to talk about time and space for a few moments, because all of life is based on the coordinates of time and space. So let's talk about the violation of space, let's talk about the violation of time. So the Torah tells us fish were created from water, animals from land. The first time around, when a God creates Adam, it doesn't say we was created from. Adam was a nefesh chaya. Later on, it revisits the story, tells us from Adama. It's a little bit unclear where his makom is, because that really is the challenge of the human being. A person is defined by what they identify, where their source is. Let me give you two examples. There's a Gemara in Bava Metzia that talks about the fact that there's a property, there's a hill, and somebody lives on top of the property on the hill, and somebody lives on the bottom. And something was growing right in the middle. And the question is, who does that growth belong to? The Talmud says, well, it depends. Is it being nurtured from the soil above or from the airspace below? All right? In other words, where something belongs, it depends on where it's sourced. Let's give another example. The Gemara talks about another place, something called a kelev yam, which literally means a sea dog. I don't know what that means exactly, but there was a Gemara. In other words, the Gemara was trying to categorize different animals, and based on the category, it had a certain level of purity or impurity. So the thing that belongs to the sea, one category. People belongs to the land. No. There's something called a kelev yam, which the Gemara had the Gemara confounded, because it seems that it spent some of its time in the sea, some on land. Kelev yam, it was a dog in the sea, whatever it was an animal that seemed to spend its time in both places. So the Gemara says, how can we determine what it is? How we categorize it? The Gemara says, well, if it's frightened, where does it retreat to? If it retreats to the sea, it really its home base is the sea. And that's what it is. If it retreats to the land, that means its home base is the land, and that defines what it is. So what you connect to, that's who you are. Everyone needs to have a makom, a place that they identify with, and that really becomes part of who they are. It sources them, it nurtures them. In fact, I've mentioned the word makom, place, has a similar word to makor, which means source, because you're sourced in your place. Whatever your niche is, that's what you're nurtured from. And if you don't have a makom, then you're cursed, called a navanad, you're the wanderer. But what you're sourced in also makes it how you live your life. What do I mean by that? Okay, so let's give an example. This week's parsha. Torah says, "V'chai bohem." The Torah says, you should do mitzvahs and you should live by them. Now the words "v'chai," it's a little bit in the middle of the parsha. I'm not going to find it. It says "v'chai bohem," you should live by them. And we know from this is what we know, the special, important mitzvah, that if you have a conflict between your life and a mitzvah, your life takes precedence. So, if have a medical situation and you're required to eat something not kosher because your life is in danger, then you're required to eat the non-kosher food because it says in the pasuk v'chai bohem, and which understood means you're supposed to live in this world. You're supposed to live. So therefore that preempts. By the way, I think I don't know what's asking this. This is an aside. When you have permission, let's say you're granted permission to eat something not kosher because of your health, are you allowed to enjoy it? Are you allowed to put ketchup on it and spices? Or no, you got to swallow. But are you allowed to turn it to this? Wow, I'm going to turn it into a Whopper and put the ketchup on and the onions and dig into it. Or listen, you got to eat it, but you can't enjoy it.
You're not allowed to enjoy it.
You actually are allowed to enjoy it.
You're allowed to
You're absolutely
enjoy
allowed to. Yes, allowed to enjoy it. Interesting enough. Once you're allowed to, absolutely allowed to enjoy
Rabbi,
it.
isn't it better to eat foods that are grown without pesticide, that causes all kinds of cancers, rather than looking at the leaves if there are a little bit of those flies in there?
They're both
and
important.
put all of them.
They're both.
What is important? I mean, people get.
Why is it one? Why is it one or the other?
It's not kosher.
What? Why is it one or the other? You have to be careful
when
about.
something is going to cause your health, then it's not kosher.
But why is it
What
both
is
one?
kashrut? Kashrut means something that is there for the health of your body, not just
It's spiritual.
kosher.
It's spiritual. You're absolutely right that we should try to
I mean,
avoid.
we go out of our way, crazy way, we Jews, that we take, like he says, magnifying glass to look at to see if the food, I mean, the greens have little flies in it, right?
Yeah, that we do that.
True, he's the guru in that. I'm telling you, he is the guru.
Well,
I mean, isn't that
it's not.
crazy?
No, it's not crazy. It's not one or the other. Both
What
are
do you
true.
mean by one of?
It's not one or the
I
other.
mean, the old days, right? We go back several thousand years now.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of Chachamim, a lot of very, very, very frum people
Right.
who didn't even have sight to see.
Well,
They
first,
ate whatever it was given to them, so they were wrong. Our ancestors were wrong.
I mean, look.
Did they have magnifying glass to look at these things?
First of all, magnifying glasses are not really needed. Meaning, you need
I
to.
mean, they tried, and that's it. Try, you should try.
No,
Not that you should not try, but
Magnifying glass, the Torah only prohibits that which you can see with the naked eye. The Torah never prohibits that. You never have to. The only point of a microscope is to bring you up to be able to see it in a legitimate way. But just like with an esrog, you don't have to take a microscope to see if it's chaser. It's based on what you can see. That's true. But on the other hand, there are two things. Obviously, you want to avoid carcinogenic intake. Now, it works both ways. In the old days, maybe they didn't spray for stuff, but they also didn't have probably the infested stuff that we have today. Also, the ecosystem is getting messed up, so it's not one or the other. But okay, let's
okay, but that's a different
all right.
discussion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the makom then. So your makom defines you. Your place defines you. So what does that mean? So we said that the Torah says v'chai b'hem. You have to live by the Torah and not die by it, which means that if there's a medical threat to your life trumps that. It's interesting though that Rashi on the words v'chai b'hem says v'chai b'hem ba'olam haba. You live in the olam haba. So Rashi seems to really turn this on its head. Because we were learning till now, v'chai b'hem means, no, you have to live in this physical world, and you're obligated to make sure to take care of your life, and therefore, if there's something that threatens your life, you're supposed to take care of your life first. Rashi says, no, v'chai b'hem means in olam haba. Rashi, why are you saying that? We're learning v'chai b'hem means in this world. You have to live in this world. And Rashi's saying you're first to the spiritual world. Well, what's Rashi doing? The truth of the matter is, when we say v'chai b'hem, that you're supposed to live and violate the Avera, it's not because your life trumps, your life is more important than the mitzvah. That's not what it means. What it means is like this. The purpose of the Torah is to give you life. Adam, before he sinned, was going to live forever. What does that mean? That means Torah is a life force. When you cut yourself off from the source, it brings death. When Hashem told Adam, now you ate from this tree, you're going to die. Now, he didn't die on the spot. But what it means is, now you've introduced death into the world. It's kind of like, if I plug a toy into the AC current, it can go on forever. Right? The AC keeps going. But if it's running on batteries, so even if it's winding going like this, right? But you know it's just a matter of time before it's going to die down because there's a limited supply of that battery, right? So when Adam was plugged into a spiritual world, gone forever. But once he unplugged himself by eating from this tree, God says, now you brought death into the world because you're not connected to your source anymore. So Torah is a life-giving force. And therefore what you're supposed to save yourself is because Torah is all about life. That's what it means. So when Rashi says, V'chai behem in olam haba, he doesn't mean live in the next world. He said live life in this world, but an eternal world. V'chai means ba'olam haba. Rashi doesn't mean to say, V'chai means when you're in olam haba, that's when you're alive. That's what it means. Rashi is saying you should live in this world, but an eternal life, an olam haba world in this world. You can live a life in eternity in this world, which is because you're plugged into a spiritual world, or you can live a life of total finality and limitation in this world if you're plugged into a physical world. So v'chai behem, Rashi is saying, doesn't mean you will live in the world to come, but it means you can live a world to come world in this world. In other words, you can live a life of meaning and purpose because you're tapped into eternity in this world, or you choose to live a world of physicality in which you're constantly a sense of limitation. Remember we said once Esav, when he had to choose between the birthright and the blessing, the birthright and the food, he said, Hine anochi holach lamas, behold, I'm going to die. And I think, recall, we said, he wasn't just saying, I'm going to die tomorrow. What he meant was, Hine anochi holach lamas, behold, I'm heading towards death. Because his whole life, because if you're not plugged into a spiritual world, everything in the physical world is constantly in a state of breaking down. It's called entropy. Energy dissipates, we age, things break down. That's the physical world. It's the physical world is heading towards death. Asa was saying, I'm heading towards death. I'm not plugged into an eternal world. But if you're plugged into a spiritual world, that's a world of life. Eitz chayim hi lamachazikim ba. You're living a world of life if you're plugged into it, if you're holding on to it, if you're connected to it. So that's what Rashi's saying. Live a world of being connected to a spiritual world. That's called living. That's eternal world. Olam haba in this world. So let's come back now. So that is, so again, so how do you define yourself? Your makom defines yourself. If you're plugged into a spiritual world, then you'll live a spiritual life. That's who you are. You're plugged into a physical world, that's who you are. And so it depends on what you plug yourself into. That's makom. So if you're not in the right makom, that's not good. If you're living Asa was plugged into a physical world, I'm heading towards death. You plug into a spiritual world. Shabbos is your home. You plugged into that world of Torah, you're living a spiritual life. It goes on forever. That's makom. Okay, let's talk about time for a second.
By the same token, Yaakov was wrong then.
Hold on, let me finish, okay?
He was
Hold
for something.
on. Let me finish, okay? Let me finish the thought. So, let's talk about time for a second. So, we talk about invasion of not being in the proper space. What about time? Time is like this. Hashem says, there's a certain time to do something. When you invade that time, Hashem's saying, I'm not ready, and you say, I don't care. What does that mean? That means in life that time is an element that's part of a process. Sometimes we get frustrated. We say we want to be better people, we study Torah, we try to do mitzvahs, and yet we don't feel somehow more elevated. We still feel that we're back in the same situation and we have the same challenges, and we think that means we didn't accomplish anything. No. Sometimes it's a matter of time. It's just not your time yet. In other words, that, people say, I want to get married, and not getting married yet. Maybe part of it is also the time element. In other words, there's a time element to life as well. And when you invade the time, you're ignoring the fact that the master plan includes time also. When you invade time, there's a time for you to get out of Egypt. Before that time, it's not ready. The world's not ready for it yet. So even though you think that you're preempting things, and that's great, there is something called zrizos. There is something, do something with alacrity, do something very quickly, but everything has its proper time.
Be'ito.
What?
Be'ito,
correct. Exactly right. So invading time is a problem too. Another view invaded time. You see, when they opened the tabernacle here, they envisioned this to be a new era. And they therefore were willing to forego the classic halachos that apply to a previous time. And they were invading time and saying, we're ready now for the new kind of existence. In fact, the sages tell us when Mashiach comes, all the mitzvahs will become batal. All the mitzvahs will become null and void. What does that mean? So Chassam Sofer says, it doesn't literally mean null and void. It means they won't be in the form of a command. It'll be advice that we want to follow. We won't need to be commanded like a parent commands a child. We'll intuitively know it's right and we'll follow the eitzot. In fact, the Zohar even calls mitzvot eitzot, advice. We'll follow without need to be commanded. So None of you said, okay, I can do away with commandments now because we're living in this new time, this new era. The Mishkan's ushering a new era where I don't need to follow mitzvot. And they were invading time. That wasn't the right time. They had the right idea, but it wasn't the right time. The world wasn't ready for that yet. So we have to respect time, and we have to respect space. And we said that not respecting space is a lack of love. I should be there, but I don't love you enough to go there. I want my own space. And not respecting time means I'm invading your time, even if you're not ready. But I don't respect that. So again, the love and fear factor coming into play with another view, the balance that we're looking for in life is that Rabbi Kiva's students didn't have that balance. They had all this love for each other, but perhaps not enough respect. In the same way that a view had all this love without the proper balance and respect, Rabbi Kiva's students had all this love. There's tremendous love for each other because they learned that after Kamecha. But Lunagu covered, not the proper respect. And again, it doesn't mean they push each other around. It doesn't mean they call each other horrific names. But whatever level of respect, understand, when you give respect to Talmid Chacham, when the Talmid Chacham walks the room, you're not standing up for him, you're standing up for his Torah, the Torah that represents. So, on some level, they were callous with that respect of the Torah. On their level. They had all this love, but not the proper respect. That was the fault of Rabbi Kiva's students, and they died specifically during this time period because if they didn't have that proper midah, they couldn't be ready to take the Torah, because their Eretz always precedes the Torah. So, another view, we learned about the balance, we learned about the idea of time and space, that everyone has to have a defining space for themselves. A shul can be your place. You could be nurtured from your shul. It could be your home that nurtures you. But everyone needs a makom that they're tethered to, that defines them, that makes them who they are. And just like that Kelev Yam, where it is connected to defines it. Just like the vegetation that grows, where it's sourced in defines it. How we're sourced defines ourselves. If we see ourselves as physical beings, then that's how we live our lives. I'll end with the story. I think I told you once, there was this couple that was, they knocked on the door of a rabbi on Friday afternoon, which is kind of a no-no. You know, you leave the rabbi alone Friday afternoon. So get it ready. They knocked on the door, and the wife answered the door, and they said, we need to speak to the rabbi. So she said, listen, I'd like, he's resting now, but I'm glad to speak to you on Shabbos. So they said, no, it's an emergency. Emergency, okay. So they come inside. Rabbi meets him in the study. He said, what's the problem? And he sees there's a lot of tension between them. He said, what's the problem? So she said, well, we just had a little baby boy. Mazal tov. What's the problem? Well, I want to name him after my father. Well, what's your father's name? Isaac. Okay, it's a nice name. So she turns to the husband, what's the problem? What's the problem? He goes, well, I really want to name him after my father. Okay, well, what's your father's name? Isaac. So he scratched it like, so what's the problem? So he says, you don't understand. Her father was this wicked, terrible person. I don't name Isaac after her father. I want to name that Isaac after my father. Right? So the truth is, we go back to Adam. Adam, the word Adam means ground. Right? It's really not a compliment when you think about it. When God said to Adam, I'm going to call you a piece of dirt, right? That's not really a compliment. To call somebody Adam, piece of dirt. Why is that a compliment? But the word Adam, Adama, also means Adameh. I will make myself similar to. And a ground is the source of growth. So Adam could either be a piece of dirt, if he's a physical being, or it could represent growth. Two choices that a person has. You could be a piece of dirt, nothing, or you could represent growth. The rabbi said to them, listen, I have an idea. Why don't you call this child Isaac? If he grows up to be a wicked person, he'll be named after your father. If he grows up to be a righteous person, he'll be named after your father. But the truth is, that's exactly the point. What we're sourced in defines us who we are. And so everyone needs a makom. We need to find a place, a shul, a base medrash, a home, but something that really we identify with, as well as who do you identify as a Jew? What nurtures you? What defines you? Asa was defined by physicality, and therefore he concluded, I'm heading towards death. That's my physical world. If you connect to a spiritual world, that's unlimited. You don't feel fatigued like Asa felt fatigued because the physical world is constantly dying out, but you feel constantly alive. I've always remarked how these great sages, they're 70, 80, 90 years old, and they're running around like spring chickens. How to have the energy? Because they're connected to a spiritual world. That the energy doesn't die. If you're living a physical life, it's exhausting. And so that's, makom is very important, how we define ourselves. Do we see ourselves as v'chai? Do we see ourselves connected to an eternal world? Living eternal life in this world. You can live a world and be connected, plugged into eternity, or you can live in this world and plugged into physicality. That's makom.
Question?
Then, yeah.
The notions of zman and makom.
Yeah.
Does it announce relativity, Einstein relativity, time and space already?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
In a way?
Oh, absolutely. Time and space, what Einstein thought he discovered that time and space are relative to each other was a Torah concept many years ago. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Sorry, at the beginning you mentioned things have to have their own time. No
Yeah.
too early, not too late.
Correct.
So when it comes to Shabbat, we taking Shabbat early.
Okay. So, good point. So, there's two things. There are certain things that are meant to be over time. And you can't rush time. The Jews were not ready. Ochel paga means literally eating an unripened fruit. You eat a fruit before it's ripe, it's not developed yet. It's just not developed. Sometimes Jewish people have to develop over time as well. And you have to develop over time. But the Torah specifically tells us there's a mitzvah that God challenged us. I want you to extend Shabbat out. I want you to bring in Shabbos early. God's giving us the power, and God wants us to be makdim Shabbos. It's not something. That's only you're invading. When God says, "Don't go here," it's not yet the time. It's a problem. When God says, "Listen," somebody says to you, "Listen, you want to come visit me? I'll be home at 10 o'clock. If you can come earlier, I'd love it." Right? So if you come earlier, you're not disrespecting him, right? So God's saying here also, if you can come earlier for Shabbat, if you can make Shabbat earlier, and we can have a relationship sooner, that's certainly the case. So when God specifically mandates us to do so, that's not an invasion of time. He's telling us to do so. I just want to end, actually, interesting thought, and I will end here, just because I mentioned that. We, on Zemiros, on Shabbat, Friday night, we sing a song, and we say the words, Hama'achrin lotzait min ha-Shabbos, u'maharim levo. Hama'achrin lotzait, we leave the Shabbos late, u'maharim levo, and we bring it in early. Because we do. Shabbat's over a certain time, and we extend it out a little later, and we also bring it a little earlier. But the question everybody asks is, it should be written the other way around. It should have said, we bring Shabbos in earlier and end it later. Chronologically, you bring Shabbos in earlier before you end it later. Why in the song do we say the reverse? Hama'achrin lotzam Shabbos. We end the Shabbos later, and then we bring it in earlier. It's really the reverse, right? That's a famous question. They ask many answers. I'll give you two answers. One is that it's referring to the first Shabbat that Jews experienced. The first Shabbat that Jews experienced, they had no reason to bring it in earlier. They didn't know what Shabbos was, and therefore, if they didn't know what it was, why would they bring it in earlier? It's only after they experienced the first Shabbos, they were so excited about it, that the next Shabbos they wanted to bring it earlier, alright? But the very clever answer is like this. Hama'achrin lotzes min ha-Shabbos. If you delay Shabbos on the way out, which means you extend it on the way out, you make it last longer, then you know what? The next Shabbos comes earlier. Why? Because this Shabbos is over later, then you have less than 24 hours, less than 6 full days to wait for the next Shabbos. So ma'achrin lotzes min ha-Shabbos. If you delay the Shabbos on the way out, the next one is going to be earlier because you've extended Shabbos, so it's less than a full 6 days on the way in. The other thing I once heard from a beautiful, my brother told me, the word ma'acher also means to be different. Ma'acher is different. Hama'achrin lotzes min ha-Shabbos. Every Jew has to ask himself, am I going to be a little different when I finish with the Shabbos? Hama'achrin lotzais min Shabbos. When you leave a Shabbos, are you hopefully a little bit different, a little bit elevated than you were before you entered the Shabbos? So machar doesn't just mean delay, but it means to become a little bit different. Hama'achrin lotzais min Shabbos. So we're heading for Shabbos, people. We should look forward to a great Shabbos. And Shabbos is that great time element that we talked about. But let's be ma'achar the Shabbos, not just in terms of delaying on the way out, but let's walk out the Shabbos a little bit different as well.
It's just real people are here for the hand for more. I'm not the base of Montego, I don't try to do.
ויתקדש שמי רבה, כרמה דיברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי ויצמח רוחני ויקרב משיחהו וחיי יכול וביום נכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל עגלה בזמן פריד ואמרו אמן יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויקרמו וינסה וידע וידע שמי לקודשו ויכול אלא מכל ברכתה שירתה תשפחתה ונמתה תמירם בעלמה ואמרו אמן על ישראל ועל רבנם ועל תלמידهم ועל כל תלמידי תלמידهم תעשי מורנו ונשתתי והתרמודן ולי בכל אתר ואתר יהא לנו ולהון לכל עינו וסדום לעמי אם קדם הרי שמעיה והרע ואמרו אמן יהא שלמה רבה משמעיה חיים ושבע ושועה ונחמה וזדפה ורפואה וגדולה סליחה וכפרה וסלרנו ולעם ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום ברומו וברחמו יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן